Observation in koi keeping is absolutely everything. It's the biggest skill that you need in order to be successful. Because if you don't truly know how to observe what's going on, you're never going to truly understand your fish to know what to do when problems arise. For me, it goes beyond anything else. Don't matter what test kits you've got, what equipment you've got, none of that matters if you can't read what the fish are telling you, because your fish will tell you absolutely everything. You've just got to learn to know what it is they're telling you and make sure that you act in a good time frame. If you do that, koi keeping will become an absolute breeze. And the further you go down the line and the more experience you build, the better and more successful you'll become. That I can promise you. Healthy, normal koi will swim. Generally, when there's more in a pond, they will swim together. Their mucus will look healthy. It's clear and shiny, not too thick. They'll also feed very well. That's an important thing. As with a lot of animals, their feeding behavior will tell you a great deal. But they will swim mid-water, maybe around the surface. They can swim at the bottom as well, but they are generally actively swimming. The temperature will influence exactly maybe how quickly they're swimming or how active they are, but generally swimming with their fins out. The gill respiration rate won't be too intense, just generally looking happy, moving freely, and if there's more than one in a pond, generally all together. That doesn't mean literally in a tight pack, but what you will get when we get into it is sometimes when fish become unhealthy, they'll start to isolate. So swimming together is a sure sign. So, signs that something could be wrong with a koi, just as we touched upon there previously. When you know the normal swimming behavior of a fish, they will very quickly tell you when something's wrong. The fish will start to isolate, maybe stay away from the pack. The fins will not be out. They'll start to clamp the fins as well. They could be standing in the water, head down or head up, almost vertical in the water body, which is really, really difficult to see. They can start sitting on the bottom. Now, there's different ways of sitting on the bottom. Sometimes bigger fish, and maybe if the water's warmer and they're not being fed too well, bigger fish will actually sit on the bottom, but with their fins out and perfectly upright. You come to the pond, they might come straight to the surface. What we're more worried about is when they start sitting on the bottom, fins clamped, they might start rocking over a little bit. And then even when we observe the mucus, it tells us even more. That thick, clear, shiny mucus now becomes white and more opaque. And all of a sudden the colour of the fish starts looking a little bit more dull and flat. What's happening there is there's an overproduction of mucus because something is causing that response within the fish. So it's normally very clear to see. They might well go off their food as well. That's another clear sign, because a happy koi is generally always a very hungry koi. When they start going off their food or that reduce, again, it's another indicator that something's not right. Koi will always give you the signs. You've just got to make sure that you see it. So that's another count. When a koi is showing any of the signs mentioned previously and the other one flashing. Now I want to be very clear on this one. Koi will flash. It's a natural. They have no other way. We scratch ourselves or itch ourselves. Koi will flash, but the way they flash is an indicator that there could be a problem. Sometimes the rate of it might pick up. They might become very aggressively flashing. Sometimes in the presence of gill flukes or gill irritation, you might see them actually go down and almost flash on the side of the gill because that's where the irritation is. So if you get that or any of the other signs discussed where the fish are isolating, mucus is thickening, sitting on the bottom, then it's a sign that there's something wrong, and that something wrong will more than likely be parasite related or water related. And there can be several depths to all that as well, but the first one is I normally go to is parasite related, because parasites in koi ponds can be very common, and the early signs of that will be flashing, jumping as well, where they're kind of skitting out the surface of the water. That is a sign of irritation. My go-to, like I say, first of all is to check for parasites by a mucus biopsy. where we check that under the microscope and the parasites will become visible. It's very easy these days to get hold of cost-effective, very cheap microscopes, and all the information's out there for you to learn what to identify. If in the case that we do a mucus biopsy and the scrape's clear, then we need to look a bit deeper into the water, because such things as elevated nitrite or ammonia, a rapid fluctuation in pH, even changing oxygen levels that can change throughout the day will cause flashing and irritation. So I want to rule out parasites, then go to the test kits. If all your standard test kits that are available to you are okay, after that you may need to look deeper into heavy metals, which is something I actually would advise any koi keeper to do. Heavy metals cause some serious problems, and more over time you get the effects as the metals accumulate within the water and then within the koi themselves. So if there's something you can't solve through the routes that are available to you, having your water laboratory tested for heavy metals and other toxic elements is a very, very wise decision. So observing your koi, there are ways to do it more effectively. Now you might well notice that when you walk down to your pond in the morning, your fish are all there generally waiting to be fed. They're very, very intelligent, and they can actually sense the pattern of your footsteps, which is something to bear in mind, because you might also have noticed if you're used to just going down to the pond yourself, you see that behavior where they all come to you. But if somebody all of a sudden joins you and that pattern of footprints going to the pond changes, the fish behavior all of a sudden changes. So understanding the patterns is very, very important. Now, to truly get to know the behavior, because they will associate you coming to the pond generally with being fed. So to truly understand, it's very handy sometimes to be able to observe the pond from afar. Now, in the current times with cheap cameras, Wi-Fi cameras being so readily available, that can be one way. Now, I would encourage not to get too obsessed with that, because too much information can also start to drive you insane. But just to be able to look from afar, my favorite tip is just to try and observe from a distance wherever you can every now and again, because you might see the early signs of a fish hanging a little bit more static in the water or behaving differently, which is showing some signs of illness that changes the minute they notice your footsteps and believe they're going to get fed. So that's a real good tip I can give you for that one. And then it's just important maybe to build some routine. As I've said there, they will associate your footsteps, maybe feeding at a set time every day, because I once was with one of the breeders in Japan during a work experience visit, and he was obsessive about monitoring the feeding time, because that's also something that observation is important with. And to gauge the feeding level, he once joked with me that he likes to go at the same time to the same spot in the same car, same clothes, and that's what he did to accurately gauge how those fish behave, because they will know, they will sense all the different patterns going on around. Now, he took it to the extremes there, but there's a point to be gained from it, is that these patterns will be recognized. So once you build that routine consistently, you will very quickly notice when something's wrong. It might be a certain fish you're used to being first there to feed, all of a sudden isn't. These are the early warning signs, and at that point it's time to take action. So a big thing when it comes to observation is to try and do it as much as possible with the koi in the natural environment. What I don't encourage you to do is to go catching your fish too often for checking them. If you believe something's wrong because you've noticed some of those clinical signs or a change in behavior, then of course you're going to have to catch one of the fish to do the diagnosis work. But what I don't recommend is you firing the net in all the time to thoroughly check the fish all over. Now, in modern koi keeping, a lot of ponds now have windows which allows you to observe the fish on the sides and underneath a lot more. What I'm talking about here is more the behavior, the signs that will give you the early warning that it could be a parasitic or a water quality related issue that you can see in the pond. If you go diving in with a net all of the time, that in itself is a stress event and can actually cause problems within a healthy koi pond and collection. So my best tip there is to always try and observe from afar and don't go intervening with the net, creating further stress events if you don't have to. So observation is not just the fish, you can also pick up a lot from the water. You use all your senses. When you get experience, they'll become more refined and more highly tuned. Smell is a big one. Water clarity is a big one. When something changes, it's not always good. Now it could just be a change in water colour, could be it turning green, that's harmless. But when ammonia starts to build in the water, you might find it goes a bit of a white colour, which is an early warning sign. Or any change you should take seriously and try and identify what it is. It could be pointing towards some failure within the system. Then of course we have smells. Smells is an absolutely massive one, because this is going to sound crazy, but if your water starts to smell fishy, yep, you've got fish in there. That's probably what you'd expect, but that's not actually normal. Fishy smelling water can actually be because of excess mucus being lost into the water or ammonia buildup. Actually, when you've got bad ammonia in a pond, that can be both, because it'll be burning the mucus off the fish. But both of those within the water will create a fishy smelling effect. A very prominent water bacteria company back in the day once described to me and told me that healthy water smells earthy, smells like soil, and that is very true. From my experience, it's exactly what it's like. So fishy smells are a massive warning sign. Changing colour is a massive warning sign as well. Then of course, if you spend enough time around your pond, it's very important that you observe the system, because what we don't want, you might have a water pump failed, an air pump failed, some change in there that could lead to a disaster or detrimental effect. So you've got to be observing everything, the temperature every day. Don't be too obsessive. This is just important fundamental things. I'm actually not a big believer, and I've said it before, in too much heavy testing equipment, because that has a habit of driving you crazy. Too much information going in can lead to stress within the hobby, and it doesn't fit well with my keep it simple philosophy. So I'm not a big fan of digital testers, continuous read testers. I do like to observe the fish, make sure everything's running properly, and then intervene and go further if I have to. But paying attention to the water colour, the smells of the water are all very, very important things. Even down to KH, believe it or not. When your KH actually completely drops out your system, what it actually causes is bacteria to die off and creates an unhealthy environment. That water goes from that nice earthy smell to quite a sour, more acidic smell. Observation is not just about the health of the fish, it plays a massive, massive impact in feeding as well. Growing fish is one of my favourite things to do, and something I have a lot of experience in doing. And my methodology, my keep it simple philosophy, is all built around what I've seen in Japan, and they do a lot of this just through observation alone. That comes to monitoring how fish feed. It might be how individual fish feed, monitoring the details of the fish, how the body's developing. Are they too fat? Are they too thin? Do you need to increase or decrease feeding? And then at the heart of it, when I'm feeding intensively, I actually use a timed window system of observation where I will sneak into one of the greenhouses. This ties in with what I've spoke about earlier in the video. I'll sneak in so the fish don't know that I'm there, and then one of those feeds throughout a day, I'll monitor it. So I might have set a 5-minute timing window within that pond. As I watch the fish feed, I see how long it takes them. So when I'm eventually at 5 minutes, I know I'm there. The fish then of course grow, and it might be that they eat it within 4 minutes, and then I know I need to increase the feeding to bring it back in line. And that time I spend will also help me monitor the fish's behaviour. So sometimes different koi have different feeding patterns. That's very variety specific, and what I might need to do is adjust my expectations on how quickly they can eat based on their natural feeding behaviour. You might seen it, chagoi, karashigoi, they get up at the surface, they absolutely dominate feeding, whereas when it comes to koaku and sanke, they're more scatty feeders, up down like that. And then we've got small fish versus big fish. When you observe well, you'll see small fish absolutely ravenous first to the food. Bigger fish takes them a bit longer to get there, but when they're at the surface, they'll spend more time. All these small details when it comes to growing koi and feeding koi will make a big difference to your end results. So failure to observe your koi correctly will lead to problems. A very simple scenario here. Say you miss that buildup of mucus in the fish, and all of a sudden that 1 or 2 isolating or really starting to show severe symptoms of parasitic problem. Parasitic problems, if left unchecked, will lead to mortalities. They will lead to bacterial infections. And when you get to them point, I mean, the mortality one's pretty serious. There's no going back. But bacterial infections are one of the worst things in koi keeping if you you get hit with it. They're totally avoidable by observation. Observe the system, make sure you've not got any nasty builds up of debris within your filter anywhere. And I'm not just talking a few specks, that's going to do no harm. I'm talking heavy loading in a system where it can become very, very toxic, very anaerobic. And then of course they say them early warning signs of parasites. And even if you notice and you from your observation you pick up the signs but you choose to ignore it and don't act fast enough when they've told you, that is when these small issues become big problems. And that is why observation is so important, but also your time frame for action is equally as important.